Imagine an 85-year-old widow walks into a small-town lawyer's office, looking like an ordinary old woman. But hidden behind her simple lifestyle is a secret fortune worth more than $20 million. And the moment her lawyer discovers the truth, his entire life begins to change. The story begins in the quiet town of Braxton, Virginia. We meet Simon Latch, a lawyer who is completely burned out. For 18 years, he's spent his days dealing with bankruptcies, divorces, traffic violations, and endless financial problems. The exciting future he once dreamed of has disappeared. Now, every day feels exactly the same. One afternoon, an elderly widow named Eleanor Barnett arrives at his office. At first, she seems like every other client. She's 85 years old, lives alone, has no children, and simply wants to update her will. Simon expects an easy meeting and a quick paycheck. But then, Eleanor reveals a secret. Her late husband worked for Coca-Cola for decades. Over the years, he quietly purchased Coca-Cola and Walmart stock. And unlike most investors, he never sold a single share. Not once. As the years passed, the stocks continued growing in value. When her husband died, everything was transferred to Eleanor. And now, that stock portfolio is worth more than $16 million. Simon is stunned, but Eleanor isn't finished. She also has nearly $4 million in cash savings. Suddenly, Simon realizes he's sitting across from a woman worth over $20 million. A woman who lives in a modest home, drives an old car, and whose neighbors have absolutely no idea how wealthy she really is. But there's another problem. Eleanor recently signed a will prepared by another lawyer named Walter Thackerman. According to that will, after Eleanor dies, Thackerman will control her entire fortune and distribute it to charities. The problem? Eleanor doesn't even have favorite charities, and now she fears she made a terrible mistake. As she speaks, Simon begins thinking. At first, he tells himself he's only trying to help. But deep inside, something else is growing. Greed. Before the meeting ends, Simon tells Eleanor not to trust his secretary and arranges a private meeting with her the next day. Then, after she leaves, he hides the truth from everyone. Not even his own staff learns about the fortune. And for the first time, Simon begins seeing Eleanor not as a client, but as an opportunity. That evening, Simon can't concentrate on anything else. His normal clients suddenly seem unimportant. Their problems feel tiny compared to the fortune he has just discovered. After work, he heads to a bar and sits alone with his thoughts. Over and over, one number keeps running through his mind. $20 million. He starts thinking about Walter Thackerman. He calls him unethical, corrupt, a man willing to take advantage of an elderly widow. But then Simon realizes something disturbing. He's beginning to think exactly the same way. The temptation is becoming impossible to ignore. Soon, Simon starts calculating how much of the estate would be lost to taxes. He assumes millions of dollars will disappear after Eleanor's death. Wanting answers, he calls an old friend who specializes in tax law. And that's when he receives shocking news. Congress recently failed to renew certain estate tax laws. As a result, for 1 year, there are effectively no federal estate taxes. 0. Nothing. If Eleanor dies during this period, her fortune could pass almost completely untouched. The full $20 million could remain intact. Simon hangs up the phone and sits in silence. The opportunity has become even bigger than he imagined. The chapter ends with Simon completely obsessed, no longer thinking about justice, no longer thinking about ethics, only thinking about one thing: a lonely widow and 20 million. What would you do if you suddenly discovered a lonely old woman worth more than $20 million and nobody else knew the truth? Would you protect her, or would you try to get closer to the money? For Simon Latch, the answer is becoming more dangerous with every passing hour. The next afternoon, Simon arrives early at the Starbucks where he arranged to meet Eleanor. Officially, this is a legal consultation. Unofficially, Simon is desperate to learn more about her fortune. As he waits, his mind races with possibilities. For years he has struggled to pay bills. For years he has watched other lawyers become rich while he remained stuck in a small-town office. Now, for the first time in his career, a life-changing opportunity seems to be sitting right in front of him. Soon, Eleanor arrives. Just as before, she looks like a harmless old widow. But Simon now sees something completely different. Behind her simple appearance lies a fortune large enough to change lives. Maybe even his own. The conversation begins casually. Simon acts friendly and concerned. He wants Eleanor to trust him completely. The more she trusts him, the more information she will reveal. Eleanor brings along the will prepared by Walter Thackerman. Simon eagerly examines it. As he reads through the document, his suspicions begin to grow. The will gives enormous authority to Thackerman after Eleanor's death. Legally, some of the language may be acceptable, but ethically, it feels wrong. Very wrong. Eleanor admits she never fully understood what she was signing. She simply trusted the lawyer's advice. Now she regrets that decision. Simon carefully fuels her doubts. Without directly attacking Thackerman, he repeatedly points out problems and risks hidden within the document. Little by little, Eleanor becomes even more uncomfortable with her existing will. Exactly what Simon wants. As the meeting continues, Eleanor reveals more details about her life. She talks about her late husband, Harry, a man who spent decades building wealth quietly, a man who never trusted people with money, a man who believed fortunes should be protected. The irony isn't lost on Simon, because now, after Harry's death, several people may already be circling around that fortune, and Simon is becoming one of them. By the end of the meeting, Eleanor seems relieved. For the first time, she feels someone is listening to her concerns. She begins viewing Simon as more than just a lawyer. She begins seeing him as a trusted advisor. And that's exactly the position Simon wants. As Eleanor leaves Starbucks, Simon watches her walk away. His plan isn't fully formed yet, but one thing is becoming clear.
This is no longer just another client. This is no longer just another will. A dangerous game has begun, and $20 million sits at the center.